The forbidden love potions, ancient Philippine magic and sorcery. Before Spain arrived in 1521, the Philippines wasn't just a collection of islands. It was a realm where the spiritual and physical worlds intertwined, where every tree had a spirit, every illness had a supernatural cause, and love itself could be commanded through ancient magic. The Spanish called it witchcraft. They banned it. They burned practitioners alive. But they couldn't erase it, because what they encountered wasn't just superstition, it was a complete magical system that had existed for thousands of years. Let me take you into the forbidden world of ancient Philippine sorcery. The Babaylan, the original witches. In pre-colonial Philippines, the most powerful people weren't warriors or deists. They were the Babaylan, spiritual leaders who could speak to gods, heal the sick, curse enemies, and yes, create love potions that could make anyone fall desperately in love. Most Babaylan were women, though men who felt called to this path were also accepted. They wore elaborate costumes, entered trance states, and performed rituals that terrified the Spanish priests who witnessed them. The Spanish immediately labeled them as witches and servants of the devil. But to Filipinos, they were everything. Doctor, priest, therapist, and magician rolled into one. Gayuma. The love potions that work too well. The most requested service? Gayuma. Love potions. Ancient Filipinos believed that attraction wasn't random. It could be created, manipulated, controlled, and the Babaylan knew exactly how to do it. A typical gayuma ritual went like this. You'd bring the Babaylan a personal item from your beloved, a piece of clothing, a strand of hair, even dirt from their footprint. The Babaylan would combine this with specific herbs, oils, and animal parts, all while chanting incantations to spirits of love and desire. Some recipes required the oil from a particular beetle found only during full moons. Others demanded flowers that only bloomed at midnight. The most powerful potions allegedly contained menstrual blood, ground bone, or fluids from your own body mixed with the potion. The goal? To make someone obsessed with you, not just attracted, utterly consumed. Spanish friars were horrified by how common this practice was. One priest wrote in 1650 that nearly every woman in these islands has attempted to use these devilish potions. The church declared it a mortal sin. Practitioners faced excommunication or death, but people kept doing it anyway. Kulam, the dark side of Philippine magic. If gayuma was the light side of Filipino magic, kulam was the shadow. Kulam means curse, hexing, the deliberate use of supernatural power to harm, sicken, or kill an enemy. And in ancient Philippines, it was taken extremely seriously. The process was ritualistic and deliberate. A mangkukulam, a person who practices kulam, would obtain something personal from their target. Then using black magic rituals, they would transfer illness or misfortune to that person. One method involved creating a voodoo-like doll representing the victim. Pins inserted into the doll would cause pain in corresponding body parts. Burying the doll would cause the person to waste away. Another technique used barang, a form of curse where insects or small creatures were magically sent into the victim's body. The victim would feel intense pain, become ill, and sometimes die, with witnesses claiming to see insects emerging from their skin. The Spanish documented cases where entire villages believed someone had died from kulam. They tried to rationalize it as ignorance, but even they admitted the phenomena were difficult to explain. Here's what made kulam truly terrifying. Everyone believed in it. If you believed you were cursed, your mind and body would respond accordingly. The placebo effect in reverse. Fear became the weapon. Agimat, the amulets of invincibility. Not all magic was about love or revenge. Some was about survival. Agimat were protective amulets that made warriors invincible in battle, protected travelers from harm, and shielded wearers from evil spirits. These weren't just jewelry. They were objects of genuine power, created through complex rituals. The most powerful agimat required extreme sacrifice. Some had to be created during a solar eclipse. Others demanded that the bearer fast for days, then stay awake for an entire night in a cemetery while reciting prayers to ancestral spirits. The most infamous? The anting, small pouches worn around the neck containing prayers written in ancient script, herbs, stones, and sometimes human bone. Warriors believed these made them bulletproof. Even during the Philippine Revolution against Spain in the 1890s, Filipino fighters wore anting into battle. Spanish soldiers reported shooting rebels multiple times, only to see them keep fighting, attributing it to these magical amulets. Was it real? Or was it faith so strong it made men fearless? Perhaps that's the same thing. The spirits behind the magic. None of this magic happened in a vacuum. Ancient Filipinos believed the world was absolutely teeming with spirits. There were Dewata, nature spirits who lived in trees, rivers, and mountains. Disrespect them, and they'd curse you with illness. Honor them, and they'd grant protection. There were Nido, ancestral spirits who watched over their descendants. Families would maintain small altars, offering food and prayers to keep the Anido pleased. And then there were the truly dangerous ones, the aswang, shapeshifters who consumed human flesh, the manananggal, creatures whose upper bodies detached at night to hunt pregnant women, the tikbalang, half-horse, half-man beings that led travelers astray. These weren't just bedtime stories. People structured their entire lives around avoiding or appeasing these entities. Why Spain couldn't kill the magic? When Spanish colonizers arrived, they were determined to erase these practices completely. They burned Babaylan at the stake. They outlawed rituals. They built churches on sacred sites. They taught that all of this was devil worship. 300 years of colonization, 300 years of persecution, and yet the magic survived. Why? Because it was woven into the fabric of Filipino identity. It explained the world in ways Catholicism couldn't. It gave people control in situations where they had none. It connected them to ancestors and land in deeply personal ways. So Filipinos adapted. They hid their practices. They blended Catholic saints with ancient Dewata. They whispered prayers in Tagalog while attending Mass in Spanish. They kept the magic alive in secret. The magic lives today. Here's the thing that will shock you. This isn't just history. This is present tense. Even now in modern Philippines, you can find people who practice these traditions. Love potions are still sold in markets. Healers still perform rituals to remove curses. Families still hang agimat in their homes. The word kulam still makes people nervous. If someone gets mysteriously ill, whispers start, baka kinulam. Maybe they were cursed. The ancient magic didn't die. It evolved. It survived colonization, survived modernization, survived everything Spain threw at it. Because you can conquer a land, but you can't conquer belief. The final truth. The Spanish called it forbidden. They called it evil. They called it the work of demons. But to the ancient Filipinos, it was simply the way the world worked. Love could be created. Enemies could be cursed. Protection could be worn. Spirits were real and demanded respect. And perhaps the most powerful magic of all was this: the ability of a people to keep their soul alive even when everything was taken from them. That's the real sorcery. That's the magic Spain could never understand and could never defeat. The love potions, the curses, the amulets, they were never just about supernatural power. They were about a people refusing to forget who they were. And that magic is still working today.